Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet and of YouTube. Welcome back to Final Fantasy Chronicles of Eno. I'm your host and game master, as always, Skajarmas, otherwise known as Toneshift, and with me today we have our full assortment of players for the time being. We have Hades Shadow 92 playing Thanatos, our male human Dark Knight. We have Darkness playing Alistair, our male human Paladin.
Hello, and I'm having a happy day.
We have Tom117Z playing Neathil, our female Elvon Ranger.
Good thing I just sat back down at my desk. That was good timing.
I was about to
Yeah,
say,
yes, it was.
He said he was leaving for get a drink.
Well, I mean, I'd already started when he did that, so it was a bit late. But anyways,
I made it.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Well done indeed, my friend. Well done indeed.
It's fine. It's all fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
References that the audience won't get, and we don't have time to explain.
Stage engineers, explosions. The DM was Anki.
Does the Little Wing have a self-destruct sequence?
No.
It has a ramming function as a final attack. Like, if you look at the Little Wing stat block, let me pull it up, because it has a stat block that you can all look at. The Little Wing, it has, let's see here, battering ram. In the event that the Little Wing is reduced to 0 HP, the pilot may choose to attempt to attack their destroyer with this move. The attack will have an accuracy of 8 and deal dex times 8 plus 2d6 armor damage to the target, after which the Little Wing will be reduced to 0 HP and subsequently rendered inoperable until repairs can be made.
Oh, well, that's handy to know, but we probably won't use that because we don't want the ship damaged.
I mean, you can only use that if you're reduced to 0 HP, so you're already damaged as fuck if you're using that.
Oh,
No.
okay.
But
One
anyways,
of these days, I'd like to actually get into an airborne fight where we can actually use the Little Wing.
eventually, I'll pull something off with that eventually. Just haven't had a chance to yet. But anyway, so, where we last left off, our intrepid band of adventurers continued their ascent up Ixion's spine, the colossal, largest mountain range on the entirety of the first Enoan continent, at the summit of which they believed the Thunder Crystal of Darkness belonging to Ramuh resided. During their ascent, they had to deal with numerous trials, including threats from the local Enkin tribes, strange, otherworldly amber creatures that tore holes in reality to crawl through, and mind-bending puzzles involving lightning currents, teleportation, and gravity bullshit.
It was weird.
It was, but that's Crystals of Darkness for you. They tend to get weird. But through it all, they managed to reach the summit, and Thanatos claimed Ramuh's Thunder Crystal of Darkness, completing that set and earning him the right to summon an Eidolon of Ramuh in battle. No sooner had the party acquired and safeguarded this crystal than a new threat emerged from the stones behind them, a great towering serpent of stone that identified itself as Ravenos, the first elemental archfiend, created from the scattered heads of Tiamat from the battle in Marasu some ways back. The party did battle with Ravenos. Despite his lack of desire to fight them, his purpose dictated
He was very ravenous.
their purpose dictated they come to blows. And after a long and intense struggle, Ravenos was eventually defeated and laid low.
I also got stoned.
A lot of people got stoned in that fight. Ravenos's thing was he liked to petrify people. And I do believe it was just after Ravenos's defeat and subsequent discussion that we ended our last session. And so
We were making our way down the mountain.
Yep, and so we pick up with you all leaving the cove, the little alcove, outcropping where Ramuh's crystal resided, and making your way back out into Ixion's spine. The way is known to you at this point, and so you can begin your descent relatively seamlessly. That being said, my good friends, what you doing?
Getting down the mountain, I imagine we're not too keen on sticking around because there are still potentially hostile warring bands of people around. But I can't remember what they were.
Yeah, Enkins, abductors, whatever you want to call them. All right. Well, it'll take you about a full day of travel or a little over to get all the way back to the Little Wing. And at this point, I'd say you're about halfway through the day after the long-ass trek to climb up you made. So you begin the descent. You pick your way back through the teleportation puzzles of the lightning current crystals, jumping from one point to another until you're back out into the open trenches. It's an easy enough venture to make, and with the winds and the lightning storm having died down with your acquisition of the crystal, it's much faster going, too. And indeed, the life forms that you would expect would normally pose a problem, hindering you at every step, seem to be more content to back off and leave you to your own devices for the time being. The slopes begin to level out a little bit as you continue to make your way down. And it's getting on towards evening by the time you're about halfway back to the Arbiter's camp. Do you want to push on or just sleep for the night?
If it's getting dark,
I
we should
think
probably...
it'd be...
So if
maybe
it's dark, we
wise
could-
to stick around for a while.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was gonna say we should probably rest up if it's dark. Travel in daylight.
Never travel at night. Never safe.
All right.
When
Well
we're
then.
not going to do a Skajarma and fall off a mountain and bounce.
More references the audience will not
Boing.
understand.
And a bomb.
As long as we understand it, that's what matters.
In jokes. Anyway.
Rest.
All right. So that said, you all set up camp. You take your usual watch rotation, but for a mercy, the night is uneventful. And you resume your descent the following morning. It is getting on towards, I'd say, noon by the time you're returning to the Arbiter's campsite. You can see there's some activity as you're coming back down. A lot of anxious eyes up on the peaks. They seem to be more mobile than they were before. And indeed, during your descent, you can spot more of the abductors, as you've come to know them, hanging out on various little peaks and jutting up spires of stone, observing your approach, and some have flown back to camp, but mostly they're just keeping to themselves as you're descending. Just watching. Until finally, you make your way back down, pass through the little stone archway that has started you on the ascent to begin with, and you can already see two familiar faces waiting for you in the middle of the encampment where you left the Little Wing. You can see Matthias Thorncaller and Radzaran waiting for you there in the middle. And you can even see a larger number of soldiers around too. It would seem that the reinforcements from Viala have arrived. As you're stepping into the camp, Matthias approaches and sizes you up. Judging by your presence, I'm assuming you were successful?
Nudges Thanatos.
Shows them shows them both crystals.
All right. You pull out both crystals and hold them out in front of you. The one of light, of course, glows, while the one of dark seems to pull in the light around it, almost like a black hole, allowing the image behind it to distort somewhat. Matthias and Radzaran look at it for several seconds with this sort of quiet reverence. Radzaran then lifts up one of his large clawed hands and sort of holds it over his heart with this sort of, you would assume, perhaps religious symbol of sorts, with how his fingers are curled, and bows his head slightly. Got it well.
That is the plan.
He lifts his head. The storms have sheltered my people for many an age. I do hope that when all is said and done, that can be returned.
Hopefully, when all is said and done, there will no longer be a danger to the crystals remaining. As it is, we need to head back to Viala. The king wishes to ascertain our intentions.
So I've heard. You should probably get a move on then. We have no need to keep you. All I ask is that you tell us about what happened up there. Were there any threats, any issues you encountered?
We encountered one of the more territorial tribes. They attacked us as we camped for the night.
As was to be expected.
But when we reached the summit and the crystal, we were accosted by a being calling itself an elemental fiend. Amber, mutated, created from one of the severed heads of Tiamat.
One of the heads?
Tiamat herself had been mutated and turned.
Oh. This is troubling.
She was present at Marasu and fell there. But Saran appears to have collected the mutated heads and turned them into their own weaker beings. No less dangerous.
Which means that there's 3 more waiting for us.
They're all tasked with destroying crystals. Ones that they are elementally advantaged to.
Of course, it is theory, but knowing Saran, he probably has done that.
Duly
I
noted.
mean, there's no theory about it. He outright told us.
Hmm.
To our faces. If you recall.
Point being, there are 3 more of those things probably going for the other crystals.
Though we know not which ones. Find that in due time. So long as we beat them to it.
Very well then. We'll keep our eyes open here. With any luck, the increased presence will serve to keep eyes off you. Walk safely.
You too.
Matthias goes and heads off to another post. Rodzeron remains for a moment, eyeing the group just a moment longer. Exercise caution. I smell
too.
foul things on the wind. And he gives his wings a flap and flies up into the air.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure Saran will even show up here now. Once he learns that Ravanos hasn't returned, he's bound to put 2 and 2 together.
I wouldn't put it past him to have already figured it out, or to just be aware of whatever his fiends know.
It's Mika talking.
Yeah, I figured.
Well, at least he won't come and hit these people with retribution or whatever.
It does mean their forces have been taken from the capital rather unnecessarily. Still, this will be done now, but to board the Little Wing return and tell him this ourselves.
Alright.
Alright. So you all getting on board the Little Wing then?
Yep.
Alright. So you all...
Going on that trip on our little blue ship.
Alright. You all hop on board the Little Wing, and after making your initial checks, you begin your ascent. And let's see here, how long is the trip back to Viala? It's gonna be about a 2-day flight. Alright. So, with your business here concluded, you lift the Little Wing up into the air, feel the winds lashing at you, and begin the flight back to Viala. The sight, as before, is the same as you remember. Passing below as the airship flies, the grasslands at the base of Ixion's Spine fading away into the rolling dunes and rocky mesas of the Uzura Desert. A familiar sight to all of you after your time in Kurzatan. before at the end of the first day of flight it returns to the large, sweeping, empty, rolling hills of the Nomad Steppe. Over the course of the second day, it's more rolling hills before copses of trees and more variety in the foliage begin to appear down below, and the occasional stream can be seen flowing into Lake Melody before at last the city itself appears in the distance, and you fly in to one of the dry docks. As your ship is coming in, you can see activity in the dry docks down below, and you get the impression that your return was expected. You come into the dry dock and get yourselves set up, and docked and landed comfortably.
Looking at the calendar, technically it'd be the 30th now because we spent a day in the mountains before coming down after the death of Ravenos.
Right, okay. Thanks for catching that.
It's the 30th of July.
Yeah, or Warm Heart, as it goes by our calendar. And the day is also called Bahamut. all 7 days of the week are named after the various
Well, what a day to start our search for the Crystal of Bahamut.
Yeah, we got Oros, Venus, Ifris, Bahamus, Levias, Ramus, and Shivas.
Cool.
Yep. All right. So, stepping down from the platform, you see that there is a contingent, indeed, of soldiers there, dressed in the fine armor you saw in those individuals who hung out around the castle, or the palace. It's not really appropriate to call it a castle with how humbly designed it was, waiting for you as you disembark. They immediately one of them sort of comes forward towards you the moment you land. The crew of the Little Wing, I take it.
That would be us.
I've been instructed to escort you all back to the castle to speak with Theodore immediately.
Wow. Guy sure doesn't waste any time.
Where the crystal is
Better for
concerned.
it. We don't have time to waste.
Indeed. Come with me, please. He turns and nods at his cohorts, and they start to move to assume a sort of protective ring around the group. Kara just sort of looks around at it, puts her hands behind her head.
Well, this is a organized welcome.
Can't say I like it.
Neither do I, but what can he do? Fate of the world at stake. World leaders gotta be, their protective selves, blah blah. Can never be too careful and all that.
The quicker we cut through the formalities and red tape, the quicker we're back on the Little Wing and heading towards the ancestral home of the Numo.
Indeed.
Besides, it's just precautions. And duty, I guess.
I guess.
All right. And so, you are escorted through the streets of Viala. As you're going, your group does get the occasional glance from the passerby, but in spite of the intense scenario that the world is currently facing, the wider population of the town doesn't really seem all that bothered. Probably because they haven't been informed. No one really knows that the world's at stake at the moment except for those directly involved.
As we go, do we see any sign of curious eyes of Fane and Athena? Is they're still here? Yeah.
Make an awareness check.
I imagine they're at the inn.
Well, just wondering whether window our return. 13.
You're not seeing any sign of them right now, no. You're escorted through the city, up through the various streets to the higher districts, before eventually the humble palace sits before you. There is no delay. The gates are open pretty much as soon as your group is approaching. Seems they've been planning on receiving you for a while, probably since you left. Lucky you, as it means less red tape. The inside is just as humble and cool and rudimentary as you remember, with the basic stonework, lack of elaborate decorations, and as you're brought into the throne room, this time allowed to keep your weapons by the guards, you're once again struck by the humbleness and general downplayed nature of the leadership of Volia. And you can see Theodore seated on his seat, along with the armored woman by his side. He immediately sits up as you're entering, as the one of the soldiers who escorted you in steps forward and announces, "The crew of the Little Wing have returned." He immediately sits up. "So I see. What news do you bring?"
We have it.
"I wish to see it
Again,
then."
shows them the crystal.
All right. You step forward and you pull out the crystals and present them. And again, the general vibe of the room changes to one of awe at seeing 2 crystals in one location in the hands of one person. You get the impression that it is a once-in-a-lifetime thing to see even one of the crystals, much less both of them in one place.
If you are not yet convinced, we could always summon the man himself.
That will not be necessary. You have done well. Now, if I may ask, what is your next move? What do you intend?
Well, first, I should warn you that we believe Saran already knows that we have the crystal.
Is that so?
He sent an amber demon, proclaiming himself one of the 4 elemental fiends called Ravenous. They attacked the crystal shortly after we arrived. It was defeated, but, well, when it doesn't return, I think he'll know, if he doesn't already.
One of 4 fiends? Did it mention anything about the others?
Only that they are also targeting crystals, of which they have an advantage in terms of element.
Have you any idea how these fiends came to be?
From the remains of Tiamat.
Few hushed murmurs go between the various guards that are gathered in the room as they sort of look between themselves with this pensive, stunned anxiety, the sort of disbelief that such a thing is even possible.
Tiamat was infected with amber and turned. She was present during Maras's destruction and perished there. Her remains have been butchered further to create these things.
And so you don't know anything more about the others other than they're going after other crystals to which they have an elemental advantage?
That's pretty much the gist of it.
I see. Very well then. I will have word sent to the Academy City. Have them figure out what they can about this scenario. Elemental fiends. This bodes ill.
While you're at it, could you maybe add one more tidbit into that message?
Depends entirely on what it is.
There's an island to the north of the Academy City, said to be the home of Shiva. That's where her crystal of light will be. If we could have any information on where to find the island, that would be most helpful.
Any information can be sent through Mika's instructors. She has a book connecting them to her.
Very well. I will see what I can include in my missive. But if you have a direct line of communication to the Academy City, then I see no reason to waste time.
Kind of nods at Mika.
I'll take care of it when we're done here.
Oh, we'll have a few days travel ahead of us. If there's nothing else.
He nods and leans back in his seat. There's nothing else, save some usual words of advice.
Welcome it.
I imagine you've already heard it from the Enkin, but guard that crystal well, and do make sure you bring it back when all of this is said and done. It is of great importance to my people, after all, and a relic of our history. Unless I have absolutely no other choice, I am not keen on relinquishing it to the tides of history.
None of us are.
He then
Unfortunate
nods.
that right now it feels like we're fighting the tide.
Understood. Regardless, he then nods back in a clear indication of it's time for you to move on.
She gets a bow of her head.
Right.
And let's group out.
All right. So you turn and make your way out of the throne room. Sorry, I was handling something on a different part of the map. And the doors swing shut behind you. And you now have the option to do as you wish before you head out.
Right, so back to the Little Wing.
I think so. Do we want to maybe check in with Athena and Fane first?
Pretty sure the tavern's on the way. We can always have a look if they're in. Alistair, can you also send a message to Sid? See if they have arrived at that location.
Darkness, I think you've been muted this entire time.
Might have been called away for something. Oh, darkness, our old friend.
You're muted in Discord.
Again.
I'm aware. Sorry, my mother needed me.
There you
I'm
go.
back.
All right.
We were just asking Alistair to message Sid and such to ask whether they'd arrived.
Yes, which I was going to write in the book, but then I was interrupted.
All right.
Okay,
All right. So you
I get
pull-
on to talking to the others.
All right. Yep. So you pull out the book, you flip it open, and you actually see a message in it written in Elizabeth's handwriting.
Uh-oh.
Let me just double check
Uh-oh,
something
what's
really
it
quick.
say?
It says, "We've arrived in the settlement of Luna Numo. The natives are proving cordial but difficult. The sooner you turn up, the better. I get the feeling we'll need something a bit more tangible than what we can offer in the way of proof and incentive to play along."
Sure, we'll be there as quick as we can.
Well, I guess we gotta go show them our crystal collection.
We've also attained the crystal, and we shall make routes.
No rest for the warriors of light and darkness.
Mhm.
All right. You beat me to
How's
that
he
by
doing?
like 20 sessions, but all right.
So, let's go before someone gets a little bit too impatient.
All right, so you make your way back down through Viala. No longer being escorted by the troops, they dispersed back through the castle. And it doesn't take you long to eventually find the inn and tavern where Fane and Athena have been staying. You push it open and it's lively inside. Not like lunch or dinner rush lively, but there are a few people in there, and there's a minstrel in the back just kind of strumming a gentle but nice tune on his harp as you're coming in.
Is it an elf?
No, actually, it's a Galka.
Darn.
Why?
Nothing.
We dodged a racism bullet there, folks. Anyways. Jesus Christ. Anyways. Okay, so.
Surprised I'm not getting a fuck you from Tom.
Oh, you dodged it, remember? Wait till it hits before I kick your ass.
Alright. And you do see Fane and Athena in the room. They're currently sort of off to one side near one of the windows, just sort of chatting with one another. Fane's got a mug of some sort of beverage in her hand, while Athena's just nibbling on a carrot, apparently.
A carrot?
Yeah, she just got a carrot in her hand, and she's just nibbling on it as they're talking.
I mean, promotion of health, I guess. Or she's part rabbit.
He gets a slight grin, goes, and walking up behind him goes, Athena, Alistar has lots of things to tell you about.
Athena looks at you, blinks, then turns to Alistair.
No.
Lips slowly split open into this big grin.
Oh, you know where this is going.
What have
Yeah.
you done me?
She immediately
Oh,
shoves the
whatever.
rest of the carrot into her mouth and then proceeds to charge Alistair.
I prepare myself for this time.
Okay, go ahead and make an opposed force check, and I absolutely need to go and pull up Athena's stat block. Jesus, it's been a long ass time since I've had to pull that up. Athena, Blue Mage, yes please.
Chapter 2.
Yeah. Fuck, I haven't opened this document since 2019. Shit.
No, it doesn't matter. Whatever his forces doesn't matter, because as Athena's charging him, you just kind of slightly grab a napkin, roll it into a ball, and throw stone to stun him.
You bastard! No.
Okay. Okay, so we can just ignore that force check. So there's just a on the side of your head. You're surprised. You look over at Nee, and you just see her wearing this big old shit-eating grin, and you realize too late you have been distracted. Lol. You turn back to Athena just in time. Plows right into you, and you go flying back a couple feet to slam into the floor. Almost like when someone accidentally bumps the record table with their hip, there's this almost like record scratch sound as all conversation in the room just goes quiet and all eyes go on you as Athena now has you pinned to the floor, glaring aggressively down at you. Is like,
All right, mister, spill.
Shit!
And I say I'm the
Skiing
Dark
across
Knight.
the floor.
I posted something appropriate in chat.
What have you... Oh, now what? Oh, you fucker!
da
God.
da da da
Damn it,
da
Tom.
da da.
I don't know how. I don't know when. But someday I will have my revenge.
Tom posted that you have been
Hey,
distracted. Henry Stickmin meme in chat. No, that's good.
Goodness.
Bum 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 bum. Anyways.
Nailed it.
Right. Anyway, so.
Yes, because now Alisai is in an awkward position trying to explain himself to
Yep,
a
so-
furious old
So
friend.
I assume while he's being crushed beneath Athena, the rest of us just sit around the table with Fane.
I mean, the Fane is standing by a window, and she raises an eyebrow at that and's like,
It's an interesting way to say hello.
Oh, we've learned to preempt it, and, you know, if we're not Alistar, it's quite enjoyable.
You know,
I'll not argue with that.
the thing that's going through Alisai's mind right now, I miss the crushing hugs of my parents.
What if you had Athena and your parents all at once?
You see, here's the thing. I just had an idea. If Alistair was a blue mage, I would have absolutely made Athena's tackle hugs a blue mage spell he could learn.
Oh my god.
Maybe that's how Athena learned her tackle hugs.
I mean, she did freaking do all kinds of magic tricks on him just to get good at blue magic. And he's basically the one that heals up if she overdoes it, and now and then himself.
I'm sure Master Matoya loved your pain during those sessions.
Hmm.
Anyways. Okay, so following that, Fane sort of then puts on a more serious expression.
So, how did it go?
Well enough. We got what we went for. Though Saran is up to his old tricks. He wasn't going to sit idly by.
That's so. What did he do?
Created some new monstrosities to go after the crystals.
It's unsettling. I assume you took care of it, though?
We did. It's a pile of boulders now.
Kyra nods.
Yep, despite its best efforts, it couldn't really lay a finger on us. Not much of one, at least.
It didn't have fingers.
You know what I mean, and
She elbows you in the ribs. Mika, meanwhile, just sort of looks a little down.
there are 3 more of them, apparently. And they're made from Tiamat's heads. And Tiamat was there when Marasu sunk.
Tiamat herself is in no pain. She's gone. Those heads are nothing but abominations, tumors. We'll finish exercising them.
Hey, come on. We beat this one. The others shouldn't be all that bad.
Trust you to be the one to talk up fate, Thanatos. How are things here? We noticed that everyone's relatively calm.
Well, seeing as I'm pretty sure word about the general threat to the larger world hasn't spread yet, everything's pretty much business as usual. I mean, there has
Probably
been
for-
some talking about what happened to Marasu, but
She shrugs her shoulders.
at this point, that's starting to be quite a while ago, and people are starting to talk about different things.
It's best if people probably don't know. They can't really do anything, and it would only cause a panic.
Aggravatingly,
agree.
yeah.
I would agree to a point, so long as we can stay ahead of Saran.
Right.
Which, if things ever start going worse,
There's no
there will
point.
come a point where they deserve to know, and then not knowing would only put them in a worse position.
There's no point in scaring them right now.
Not now. But warning, eventually. Hopefully we can keep it from coming to that.
We just
Next
have to
we
do
head-
our job.
Next we're heading to Luna Numo. The others have already arrived on the Stargazer.
Huh. Ancestral home of the Numo, huh? Can't really say I know a whole lot about Numo culture.
To another dark crystal, if I recall.
The Dark Crystal of Bahamut.
That ought to be a
Dark
fun time.
crystals. Dark crystals.
I'm sorry, I accidentally deafened myself. What was that?
He said
Oh,
Dark
dear.
Crystals are weird.
Athena,
Well,
Athena back where she sort of nods.
I can vouch for that!
oh, I'd be happy to go to a new location once I get off the floor.
Right, yeah.
Athena stands up and helps you back to your feet, then turns to look at Alistair, or over at me, rather.
You know, the shit Alistair has to tell me is the same shit you're just telling the Fane, so...
Yeah, but it's fun watching the reaction.
You know what? I will give you that.
She sort of claps Alistair on the back and moves over to rejoin the group.
Yes.
Besides, wouldn't you much rather hear it from your old little Ali?
And now Alasai's just looking at him, frown on his face.
Needs a her.
You know,
Wow,
look at
now
me.
you're being a little shit today, Nate.
Well, someone's perked up with character today.
Oh, I'm in a decent mood. Besides, it's not much different from usual. We've always taken the piss.
True.
Here
Especially
we go.
Reggie over there.
Well, Talion is a different story. Winks at him.
No, we've talked about that.
Mhm.
Right. Anyways.
Whatever you
surprised
say, Aurelia.
I was waiting for that. That's my name.
You hear Emma just kind of chortling on the inside.
So, shall we be off on our way to the Numo?
Quite.
Although, if you wish to stock up on anything before we go, it's up to you.
You know, actually, that's a good point.
High potion, 3 potions, 2 things down.
Because
I'm
I was
good.
thinking to do so. Because let's see, yeah, I definitely need to because I have no high ethers.
How much skill do we have?
8,363.
Oh. I'll hold back on upgrading my last bit of equipment to tier 4 then, and we'll just do consumables.
A little bit of potion shopping. I don't really need to things down because I got that ability, even though I use it on more other people than myself. But
I'm good on
But what-
consumables, just everyone else grab what you need.
Hmm.
That's what
I
I'll-
just
I'm good.
need a high potion and 2 high ethers.
Yeah, I'm good on consumables too.
Give me just a second here.
Do I bother getting another regular potion though, or just leave it as 1?
Well, considering you've got that item improving,
Yeah, I
Quirk,
suppose I could do that then.
basically makes
that-
a regular potion a high potion.
Yeah, that's true. So then I'd be back with 2 of each potion.
All right.
Although I do think I'll get Kyra 2 high potions because she doesn't have anything.
All right. Fair enough.
Aw, it's treating her.
All right. So, since high potions and high ethers both cost 200 gil a pop to buy
Oh,
a collection of each, since Mika also wants to stock up on high potions and high ethers for herself, would run about 1,600 gil for how many she's wanting to fetch for herself.
That works.
All right.
okay. So that'd
got
be
plenty
1
to
high
spare.
potion. So let's see, that's 1 high potion for me, and 2 high ethers, and 1 regular.
Like, for future reference, if I recall, the only tier 4 stuff we're lacking, if I recall, is Kyra's, well, excluding Kyra's gear for the main party, is Av's staff and Storm, isn't it?
And Mika's weapon.
Right.
So
And
I'm
my
stocked.
armor.
Rama.
Yeah, I only have tier 3 armor.
Thought you had tier 4 already. Alright, well, so the point is, when we get a bit more over 10k, we can grab another bit.
All right. So that money has been spent. I'll go ahead and apply that to the total of gear everyone has. 2 high potions, 2 high ethers. Come on.
I know Alchemist would make sense for me for 2 reasons. 1, because it's mother side, and 2, it's very handy
Right.
when we need a bit more boost.
You know, I totally forgot that Mika has the allure ability.
And what's that?
Allure. Mika may inflict charm on a single enemy that may think her as sexy once per day with an opposed finesse check, and her negotiation skill increases by 2.
Oh,
So,
we
you
already.
know,
Well, she
that's-
already does that to me, and she doesn't need that perk.
Right.
I was gonna say, I think it's gonna be changed to only use on knee instead of foes.
Me will probably be uncomfortable with this ability and have many mixed feelings.
Oh crap! I wonder what Emma would think of that.
Oh, jeez. And Emma's straight, too. Oh, boy.
Yep. Don't worry, once you become my new sister, you won't ever remember this ever happened.
Should bloody well hope not.
There's a question just out of character. Will Emma have any of her memories?
No, we've been over this.
Okay, I
A
forgot.
fetus is
Oh.
not developed enough to retain memories like that.
It's
I mean,
been a while.
Especially
only
a
had
newborn.
was, only has had was like recollections and like faint dreams every now and then.
Yeah, just like instinctual shit left over. Emma won't get that.
Quite.
Because
So,
he popped into the body of a week-year-old. Emma's gonna pop into the body of a negative 6-month-year-old, or something or something like that.
quite. So, what now?
Well, if you
Well, we stocked up.
Do
We're
you have
off.
anything? Do you have anything else you want to do in town?
No.
All right. Well then, that all being said, you head on back to the Little Wing, back in the dry docks, and you take a little bit just making sure everything's all good, launch checks and whatnot, filing out paperwork, blah blah, boring shit we won't waste time on. Before eventually, you are cleared for departure, and the Little Wing begins
Welcome
to.
to Aerosville. Hope you have a pleasant trip.
Let's see, it begins to.
Little Wing, you are cleared for takeoff.
Begins to pull away. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so and you are heading for Luna Numo.
What?
Yes.
Alrighty, let me just get some airship
long
music
of a flight will
going
that be?
here.
I have to wonder whether these Numo will operate on the same rules as 14s.
I mean, you've met Numo before.
We've met one.
Well, Tam and Bill's another one in your arc.
Oh, well.
Kellyan's buddy. But, I mean, at that point we hadn't played 14's Numo, so we didn't know about any of those rules.
So I just have to. So do we just have to tell them to sit?
That would be horrible if you tried that. They're more rabbit-like.
I mean, that's what we did in 14.
I know.
You don't have how I say it, you just need to weave those words into normal conversations discreetly.
All right,
We
so
very much like you to heal.
our injuries. All right, so as soon as you have pulled away from the that is the wrong party icon. That is Fane's party, not yours. There we go. All right, so you pull away from Viala and spend the majority of the first day flying over Lake Melody and following the river that flows out of it. It is a quiet flight for the most part, nothing disturbing you as you're making your way further and further to the south and west. You follow the river for the most part as it's basically pointing you in the right direction to where you're wanting to go. And you can see the forests rolling beneath the airship if you bother to look over the deck. It is uneventful, thankfully.
This is too easy.
Well,
Don't say things like that, you're just asking.
I
him.
know you. This is too easy.
not necessarily. Anyways. Alright, so the second day is largely also uneventful. The cello song forests disappear behind you over the horizon as you fly further and further. Off to the south, as you're going, you can see Mount Druzjakal off in the distance, this large, far more jagged and broken up looking mountain range when compared to others you've been on. It's not as large as Ixion's Spine, or even Mount Uzor further to the east, but it's still its own impressive monolith rising up out of the ground. And you recall that the Amber Field lies to the south of it. And off to the west and somewhat to the north, you can just make out the faintest hints of the Bleakmog Swamp. Or Bleakamog, rather. This enormous expanse that you're aware of is just countless pools of water, shallow as the rivers that flow into it flatten out into deltas, making it very damp and very misty and very unpleasant to try and traverse. Let's see here. It is pretty early on in the third day that you actually see the city of Renvale on the riverbank as you're making your way. It's a relatively hefty city. You can't really make out very many details from here as you're flying by. You do see that there is some airship travel coming in and out of it, but nothing too much of note. And unless there's anything you wish to do in relation to that city, you can just keep moving.
I mean, kind of on a schedule, so
Kind of
we'll
on a
keep on going.
That you are. All right. And so, it is getting on towards the evening when you finally break away from the river that comes out of Lake Melody. And you can see the grounds beneath you and how the various copses of trees and general foliage and rolling hills and the occasional cliffs that make up this area begin to rapidly smooth and mellow out. And the trees begin to dissipate, and you begin to realize that there's a fog filling the air the further you go. And it's quite a dense fog at that, especially this high up. But you can still see the ground as you bring the little wing just a little lower, just to sort of keep tabs on where you are generally. And as you're going, you begin to realize that though this opens steppe, you are finding yourselves on this seemingly endless expanse of practically flat land with very, very slow and gentle rolls and slopes to make up environment and the topography. The land is peppered with all kinds of shrubs and low-lying plants, but no trees that you can see. It's all ankle in height. As the sun is dipping towards the horizon, casting the entire area in this sort of thick golden haze, nearly blinding if you look in the direction of the sun itself, or even remotely in that direction, you can see down below large herds of thick brown-furred animals stampeding along, weaving their way between a seemingly endless network of intersecting rivers that criss and cross, smaller streams, much smaller, only a few feet across for most of them, but big enough to catch the light and show the land in this sort of distorted, not grid, but that sort of natural grid-like arrangement. Have you ever seen like an overhead view of certain parts of South America and how there are all these rivers that just criss and cross all over the place?
Yep.
Also, Darkness, where have you gone from the D6?
Yeah, darkness has disappeared from the roll 20.
Wait, what? Oh, fuck,
You
it
have
froze.
disappeared from the roll 20. It froze.
Ah. Hang on,
Technical
We upload
difficulties.
my browser.
everybody.
Yeah. Well, at any rate.
Because, yeah, I was like, hang on, it's not moving. What the fuck?
All right.
There we are. Do you see me now?
Yep, you're back.
Yes!
And
Bloody PC.
as the sun is setting on this third day of travel, you can see more and more of these big ol' herds, and indeed, looking down at the lands below, you're starting to spot something other than the big herds. You see the occasional little flicker of light, orange in color, flickering like fire, and you're spotting small encampments. This sort of style you've not seen before. As the airship passes over, you get the impression you're probably getting looks from the inhabitants of these campsites, but you can't really make anything out from here with how fast you're flying. But either way, you're starting to see the inhabitants, and they are surprisingly plentiful.
Numo?
Are they Numo?
You can only assume so. Again, you're flying a bit too fast to pick out individuals here. Finally, getting on towards early afternoon, talking like 3 or 4 p.m. of the next day. Let's see here. Approximately around 2 or 3 p.m. of the next day, you finally see a larger settlement up ahead. It's very much still has that sort of encampment style, at least on the outer edges of the settlement. But the further in from the outer rings you get, the more it changes from all of this sort of cotton and wool sort of tents with like sheared furs and like to more rudimentary sort of Celtic style stone buildings. Squat huts made of rocky blocks, roughly chiseled but effectively stacked into these almost igloo-like shapes, reinforced periodically with bits of wood or, to your surprise, bone. And you bring the little wing to a landing right outside. How do you wish
When we land, do we see any sign of the Stargazer?
Make an awareness check.
7.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Phew.
It's a little ways off. It was sort of the indication like, this is where we need to be when you saw it. Maybe about a 2-minute walk away.
I see the Stargazer. Go see if anyone's home.
All right.
As we get off the ship, does anyone meet us?
No one seems to be coming to meet you just now, but you can definitely tell as you're all stepping off that you are being watched. Like from the edges of the town, you can see an assortment of Numo just kind of watching you curiously, but keeping their distance. And their attire is all very similar. It's all like this assortment of cottons or brown furs that have been sort of arranged and set up. It's chaotically uniform, if that makes sense. Like each one has its own little bit of personal flair or style to it, but they're all made of the same raw materials.
Shall we head over to the Stargazer first before checking out the town, see if they're there?
Whatever you guys want to do.
I'm asking them, should we do that?
Yeah, sure.
I don't mind.
Which one? He presented 2 options.
I said go to the Stargazer every time.
Okay.
Stargazer.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so you walk on over to the Stargazer, and as you're approaching, you spot you see that there are a few people up on the deck just kind of loitering about or taking care of menial tasks. It's kind of hard to make them out through the mist. Sorry, my microphone decided to fall over.
Biggs and Wedge.
You recognize their silhouettes. Sort of, they're the ones doing most of the running around.
Biggs, Wedge.
They sort of perk up. Biggs runs up to the railing and waves heartily. Aye, glad you can make it.
It was a long trip. Where are the others?
The boss is in the town. The rest of us are just kind of staying behind to keep tabs on the ship.
Is he alone, or is he with Elizabeth and the bot?
One of the silhouettes on the ship sort of turns to face you and grunts, and you recognize it as Nabat.
No, he's on
Okay.
his own.
Take that answer. Is there Elizabeth there as well? And
If she is up there, you don't presently see her.
did he say where he went?
Just into the town to talk to the shaman, I think. He's been in there for a
Shaman.
while, though.
Well, maybe we can help that along.
Eh,
Were you able to ascertain any information, or are they still playing difficult?
They're still playing difficult.
Right. Guess we're off to the shaman.
Yep. Indeed, we are.
Does anybody other than me think this fog is a little weird?
If you want to know, you can ask the shaman.
Or if any of you want, you can make a lore check. Maybe either lore history or lore magic.
Oh, I got lore magic.
Let's see. Because all of us have lore.
Well, I have lore magic.
Well,
So I could give it a shot.
All right, if you want to roll,
Go on,
that,
Alex. Let's see if you can break the mold.
Me get a
And if
knowing
he fails,
something.
and if he fails, we can always ask the bookworm.
Let's see how awake Alisire is. Nah,
Not very.
not good.
Well, to be fair, this is relatively common knowledge, so the DC was like 5.
Oh.
Yeah. This is common knowledge. As it stands, the open steppes and plains that the ancestral home of the Numo is situated on is very much an open... I mean, like I said, it's open plain, but more than that, the fog that you guys are seeing has been here since time immemorial. It's just this constant part of the region. No one's entirely sure why it's perpetually misty. There's just this constant low-lying fog to the ground, regardless of what's going on in the upper atmosphere.
I know.
You do?
Well, yeah, every crystal of darkness we've been in has had some kind of effect on the environment. Like Leviathan's
Makes
cave, the mountain where Ramuh's crystal was.
Makes sense, and it's part of crystal of darkness here, and it makes sense it's affecting the
Does
air,
seem logical.
making it foggy.
All
Nice
right.
theory.
All right.
Crystal of darkness, guess that makes sense. Well, solves that mystery. Now shall we find Sid?
Quite.
All right. Kara just kind of looks around as you start to make your way towards the settlement with a sort of scrunched up look on her face.
Something wrong?
Yeah, I can't figure out how I feel about this place. On the one hand, there is nothing in the air to obstruct me if I want to jump. On the other hand, there is nothing up there for me to land on if I want a good view for more than a couple seconds.
Yeah, and you probably won't be able, unless you can jump above all this crap, you probably won't be able to see anything.
Yeah, probably not. That's another problem.
Well, next crystal on the list is a nice crystal of light, so no weird atmospheric effects.
Hmm.
Though it is Ifrit, so there might be fire.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess.
All right. You start making your way up towards the settlement, and the various Numo that are waiting at the edge sort of scatter a bit as you're approaching. Not like fearfully. They're more just sort of like getting out of the way for an unknown thing. They don't know your purpose here, but they're not really scared of you. They don't seem to be getting any sort of threatening vibes. They're just watching you curiously and are more giving you a wide berth so they can observe you. Like, I almost want to say kind of like a wildlife documentator, keeping tabs on like a lion he's been tracking for weeks to try and figure out the day-to-day of its routine. It's kind of like that as they're just backing out of your way, giving you your space.
Makes you wonder if they've ever seen a human elf or Mithra.
Well, they're certainly aware of our existence,
Mika is saying.
I mean, they've known for a long time. There have been dignitaries to this region plenty of times before. It's just usually people don't necessarily come here because there's not a lot going on, and not a lot of strategic value to try and take back when things are more warlike.
Tom, was he born and raised Marasu, or did he come from here?
He came from here. Well, I don't know if he came from this particular settlement, but I know he came from the ancestral home. And then he wandered off and decided to become one of the Wanderers. Numo culture is kind of a weird thing to my understanding because it has this sort of dichotomy going on. It's split into two, but those two pieces are very tightly knit. You have the ones that stay in the ancestral home in the steppes, living their nomadic lifestyle, and then you have the ones who wander the world and integrate more with the other races in wider civilization. And while they live very different lives, culturally they're not really that different. So one who is, say, born and raised in, like, Renvale over there,
She points vaguely to the north and east.
would probably still get along really great with the Numo here. And indeed, it's part of their entire culture that when a Numa reaches 100 years of age, if they were born and raised outside of the ancestral home, then they're supposed to make a pilgrimage of sorts to come and meet their predecessors, I guess.
Slight shame we don't have Tom with us. Might have been helpful.
Probably.
Wonder if that one from Kurzitan came from.
I personally doubt that. Given the Numo's general aversion to violence and their peaceful lifestyle out on the steppes, it's more likely he was born and raised in that city.
Alright.
I want to tarnish this place's reputation with that shit.
Definitely
Well,
not.
he works for Kelly now, so we'll see how that goes. Right, where's this shaman's place then? Can
As
we
you're
find it?
stepping a little further into town, you are being approached, you notice, by a couple of Numo in somewhat more extravagant-looking clothes, and they have, like, these sort of marks on their faces, tattoos of some description.
Can we help you?
One of them steps forward.
Yes, hello. I am a speaker for this village. I was wondering if you would be so kind as to tell us your purpose in coming here.
Apologize for the intrusion. We're currently looking for a friend of ours, Sid Gaston.
Ah, the bearded man from afar with the flying machine. Yes, he is in talks with our shaman as we speak. Has been for quite a while. He's a stubborn one, he is.
Can you point in the direction? Sid requires proof to the claims he is making, and we hold it.
Make a negotiation check.
Come on, Nee.
You believe in your knee.
Don't fuck it up.
Didn't?
Damn.
All right. 15 for negotiation. Fuck.
Yep. Damn near critical
Alright.
success.
All right. The Numo blinks at you a couple of times.
Oh, that would certainly speed things along.
Very well. Come along, come along. And he turns and starts sort of waddling deeper into the village.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So he guides you a little deeper in until eventually you see the central structure of the village. though, as you're going, you see more of the village as you're passing. The various smaller tents quickly fade away as you're surrounded more and more by the squat stone huts. And each one, you realize, has a totem erected outside of it. But each totem is different. They're at varying heights, varying sizes, and the imagery inscribed into each one sort of spiraling up the shaft. For one thing, they vary dramatically in style, even from ring to ring. And they all depict different things. On one, for example, you see a Numo herding a massive group of those, brown-furred, large livestock creatures that you saw out on the steppe. In another, you see a Numo with a wand facing off against a dragon. In another, you see two Numo just sitting together with the sun and the moon behind their backs. On every single one of these totems, the images are vastly different in style and depiction and imagery. You can see plenty of lines of thread connecting various homes where sheets of cotton or patches of sheared fur are hanging to dry in the wind, you can see, and it's a very active settlement. Everyone seems to be doing something. Despite the sort of generally sleepy demeanor a lot of Numo tend to come with, this place is bustling. Everyone seems to have something they're doing. Everyone has some job that they're having to get done. You can glance through and you can see that there are indeed wide fields of like cotton plants that are sort of surrounding the settlement on all sides, and you can see that there are plenty of Numo out there just picking away. And within the town, you can see near several of the homes, there are these sort of fenced-in enclosures and pens where more of the large brown-furred creatures are, and they're very large, very thick-furred. So I'd put them at like 8 feet tall at the hunch of their humped back. They're very bulky, and like I said, their back has a big hump. So there's a lot more spine, I guess you could say. And you can see several Numo tending to these creatures, either brushing them or snipping away their fur with these relatively simple shears. It's very, very active, and everyone seems to have a role, and everything has a purpose. There's not a lot of decoration outside of the totems. Everything is more practical.
Fascinating.
Eventually, you're brought into this part of the settlement. It's all very chaotic and haphazard in how it's laid out. Like, there's not like an organized layout or street system. The huts are just kind of around, and there are only like a few big sort of thoroughfares that cut through various parts of the settlement until you get to the center. In the center of the settlement, there is one somewhat larger stone building, still rudimentary, built up with stone blocks that have just been roughly chiseled and stacked together, and it looks ancient. There is moss clinging to the well-worn stone, a lot of marks, little scratches and dings and bits where stone has been chipped off over time. It is very worn and very weathered, and it has multiple totems surrounding it. And each one, again, has this sort of different style to it. And indeed, you can see these sort of almost like tapestries hanging off from the upper parts. It's sort of like two domes sort of stacked on top of each other, the one on top being upside down, so it's kind of like an hourglass shape almost, with a flattened top. And it is from that flattened top that a lot of these tapestries are hanging down in a wide assortment of colors and abstract symbols and scenes you can't quite decipher, blowing gently in the wind. There is light coming in through the glassless windows, orange and flickering, the light of a fire, you presume. And all of the buildings have been built a healthy distance away from this central one, leaving this big ring at the very center of the settlement through which the Numo are routinely passing. And there are plenty that, eye the central structure with a sort of quiet reverence as they pass. And the one leading you sort of comes up to the front door, and it's not like there's a full-blown door, it's just like a cloth that bars entry. And you can faintly hear voices on the inside at your approach. The Numo clears his throat.
Shaman, there are new people here to speak with you. Friends of this Cid.
A moment later, you see this dark-furred hand, one of the darker-colored Numo, sort of pulling the tapestry aside, and you see a female Numo who looks to be somewhat younger in years than you would be expecting for a shaman, though she has a wide assortment of tattoos across her face that very much make her look more sagely as she pokes her head out, eyes up the group.
Ah, that's so. More of them. Very well. You may enter.
She steps
Is
back.
Cid's present?
You can see him sort of sitting at a cushioned stool a little further in, looking at your way with the sort of tired, exasperated, but hopeful smile on his face.
So we enter and think.
You enter into a relatively small room. There is a big sort of spread out fur pelt on the floor, numerous stools, many of which have been backed up into the walls. There is a larger stool right in front of a burning hearth that sits at the back of the room, a big old thing with a huge fire blazing in it, sending smoke up through a chimney that you hadn't noticed before. The Numo shaman sits in the big chair in front of the hearth, and then gestures to any of the stools around.
Go ahead and pull up a seat, and then we may speak.
We thank you for your hospitality.
All right. As you're all pulling up your stool, she places a hand to her chest.
I am Nula Oria. I am the shaman in charge of Luna Numo. And you are?
Nia Phil, this is Thanatos, Alisa, Mika, and Kyra.
Sup?
Okay.
Greetings.
Sid sort of looks over at you.
Yeah, these are the friends I was talking about. I traveled with them for quite some time a ways back. They're good people.
I don't doubt that. It's the veracity of the story you're telling me that I call into question.
What has Cid told you so far?
I will give your friend credit. He is not one to mince words. He has told me that you and yours are on something of a mission to save the world, as it were. That some vile ancient force is trying to make a comeback, and in order to do that, it is seeking the crystals to destroy them, including our own.
That's right.
Is the gist of it.
We are to understand that within your home you hold Bahamut's Crystal of Darkness.
We do indeed. Though you must understand my hesitation to reveal its location to you.
And let us help
Of
assuage
course.
that. Thanatos, Mika.
Pulls out the crystals.
Mika does as well. And immediately the demeanor on Nula's expression changes. She goes from the sort of patient and polite but skeptical to stunned as her eyes land on the crystals.
What?
These are what remains of Leviathan's Crystal of Darkness, and both of Ramuh's crystals already in our possession.
How did you come by these?
Lord Ramuh told us their locations, and he has tasked us to find all of them and protect them from the darkness that's coming.
If you have any remaining doubt, you could always ask the man himself. With both his crystals, he can be here in a moment.
I don't think we should just call on him that easily, Nate.
No, but it's making a point.
Nula eyes the crystals for a few seconds, and her eyes land on Mika.
And what of Leviathan's other crystal? We haven't gotten it yet. It's on the list. I got outvoted. This one came first. Outvoted?
This one was closer.
Leviathan's other crystal lies far to the south, supposedly near the Pierre Oasis. There are several others between here and there.
Sid chooses this moment to speak up. Just for clarification, the reasons for her previous doubt and refusal to help us was, though she didn't necessarily doubt that there was something bad at foot, she didn't necessarily trust that we were trying to help.
So
Right.
genuine. I see.
Well,
Right, Nula nods.
Yes, you do need to understand. If there is a vile force trying to claim the crystals, then I have to be extra vigilant in guarding mine. Because, well, anyone can step forward and say that they're here to defend the crystals, can't they? But how can I believe them
true.
without proof?
understandable, but I hope the fact that we have 3 crystals, intact crystals at that, in our possession should help prove our intent.
Indeed.
It certainly lends weight. But alas, this decision is not mine alone to make.
Then whose is it?
It is a shared responsibility across all the Numo, but mostly between myself and the shaman of Vuna Numo. We share the responsibility of guarding the crystal, for we preside over the 2 largest clans and the only stationary settlements in the entire steppe. We safeguard the crystal's location and its barriers. And no one of us can take action without the agreement and cooperation of the other.
So we must travel to Vuno Numo and seek out this other shaman.
Indeed, if it is your intention to go for the crystal and acquire it,
And she
It
eyes
is
the
in the-
crystals you're presenting.
and
It is in
safeguard
the-
it, then yes.
It is a necessity, now more than ever after what we learned on Ixion's spine. We encountered a creature that attacked Ramuh's Crystal of Darkness up there, calling itself an elemental fiend. There are 3 others. We don't know which crystals they're going to attack next.
Hmm. I see. Very well then. I've never had to do this before.
She then stands up and sort of pats herself down.
Very well. In showing me your crystals, you've demonstrated that you at the very least are capable of carrying and safeguarding them. And seeing as you have both of Ramuh's, I have to take your word at it. I have to assume you're telling the truth that he trusts you. And if a god trusts you, I would be a fool not to. Head to Vuna Numo and speak with their shaman. I shall await you at Ula Arano, and if you arrive with him, then I shall know that it is time to open the way.
Where is this Ula Arano?
She turns and gestures sort of vaguely to the west.
It's to the west of here. You will be guided to it if you are granted passage by the other shaman.
Thank you for the directions. We'll endeavor to
And
meet you there.
cooperation.
I look forward to seeing you. I've never actually done this before. It'll be the first time I've opened the way, if it all comes to pass.
She sort of chuckles a little bit to herself and seems to be rather excited.
Well, it is the crystal of Bahamut, and he is generally seen as the biggest of them.
Well, what are you waiting for? Off you go.
Okay.
Where are you going? Sit.
Right. And he follows you out as you leave the hut.
Well, that went smoothly.
Seems you did some of the work, preparing them for our arrival. Might
Well,
have been harder. Might have been more of a shock to the system and many more questions had you not answered most of them.
indeed.
He sort of looks over at Thanatos.
Before we head out, I wouldn't mind if we sat down for a little while and had a chat.
I'm rather curious to know how everything went over there.
Let's head back to the Stargazer, fill everyone in.
That would be a good idea, yes.
All right. So he leads you back through Luna Numo, and it doesn't take you long before you're stepping out past the outer tents and returning to the Stargazer. And you can see that Elizabeth has now joined Nabat up on the deck. They sort of look up at your approach. And Sid waves. Hey, finally making some progress. About damn time. That's Elizabeth.
We've been given a place to go, Vuna Numo. But if we can convince the other shaman there, as we have the one here, way will be open for us. Crystal in our possession.
Jinri, Nabat raises an eyebrow.
Really?
So they claim.
Roadblock after roadblock.
It's to be expected. These crystals have to be guarded.
I'm aware of that. That doesn't mean I can't be impatient about the whole process, though.
I mean, it's really no different from all the roadblocks we had finding Deviacorp.
Let's not start that whole thing up again. Anyway, tell you what happened up at the Ixchian Spine, and straight back explain it. 'Cause we've done it so many times already.
All right. So you give a recounting of the events that happened with Ramuh's crystal, with your encounter with Ravenos and everything else. The group listens with rapt attention as you're explaining all of this. Eventually, you wrap up the tale, and there's a general sort of unease among everyone as you finish telling them that. Elizabeth sort of folds her arms over her chest and looks down and off to one side.
Elemental fiends now, is it? Do you think we'll be encountering one here?
Hard to say. There are 3 of them, and still 7 crystals over there. So yeah, still 7 crystals unaccounted for. So could be any of them.
The light crystals tend to be guarded by the actual god themselves, so I imagine the darkness crystals are their first target.
Perhaps.
Except Ifrit. He apparently likes to hang around his darkness crystal in the Hellfire Pit.
Not at all surprising,
That's Nabat.
considering that he was, what, according to your accounting, the second one to pop up?
Something like that.
Yeah, Nabat and I have been talking about that,
Sid pipes up.
about the order in which the various deities emerged, according to Ramuh's recounting, and we think we noticed a pattern. With each one that emerged, they were more orderly. Their general disposition or elemental attunement was leaning more and more towards things closer aligned to light until finally we just got Seraph himself as a pure embodiment of it.
So like the inverse of entropy. It was absolute chaos and orderlessness to, well, what we have now.
True. Perhaps it was just trying to create a balance between them.
Perhaps.
Well, we have day and we have night both. But if Diablos gets his way, it'll only be night.
If Diablos gets his way, it's just gonna be another barren wasteland. As I recall, the intent is for him to turn it all back to the chaotic dust he came from, right? His canvas to do with as he sees fit?
An environment where only he will live and nothing else. A world all to himself. Back to how it was at the beginning, but at the complete omnicide of every other living thing on the planet.
A world all to himself, and whatever he decides to put in it to join him.
Mika's pointing out.
His amber demons.
If so, but considering the last time he created more things, it led us to this day, he might not bother. Whatever the
Well-
case,
Well, he didn't consciously create the other gods. They just kind of sprang up in response to his desire for companionship, didn't they?
whatever the case, it matters little. We need to stop him either way, or else everyone will pay the price. Everyone and everything that exists.
Right. Well then, we should probably get a move on, shouldn't we?
That's Elizabeth.
If it's the same, we'll start heading towards Unanumo. Gather the crystal here. Unless you have a particular, like, any words. Ha. Unless you have anything particular in mind that could help with our efforts here, could we ask that you scout out the next location?
I would personally rather we remain on hand. Just in case something bad happens here, you might need help. If Saran himself decides to get involved. Well, we all know that none of us are capable of handling him on our own as we are. As a group, we might be able to deter him if needs must.
I don't
Alright.
see him showing up himself if he went through all the trouble of making those fiends.
Don't underestimate him. Who's to say the fiends can't be a diversion from his true plans or intentions?
Well, if you prefer to remain, then remain. We'll travel onwards together.
Right. That said, we should probably... That said, the Stargazer will probably stick here in Lunanuma while you head on to Vuna, and we'll follow the shaman from here to Ula Arano. Kind of curious to see what that is.
Alright. Check the place out before we arrive. You can fill us in on any special rituals you might need to do. Again.
Yeah, just be aware. Crystals of darkness tend to make things weird around it.
I've already clued them in on all of that.
Jinri's saying.
Alright. Well, we'll head off to Vunanuma on the Little Wing then, and meet you at Arano.
Alright.
Alright, fly
Good luck.
safe, you guys.
And I guess we're off to the Little Wing.
Alright. Alright.
When we're out of earshot of those on the Stargazer, is it just me, or is Nabat getting somewhat better?
Considering the circumstances, she's having to play nice.
That's Kyra talking.
Fair enough. I expected an insult or something.
It's in the tone of voice. She was absolutely dripping with venom every time she looked at you guys. But she's keeping a lid on it. credit where it's due, she does have her priorities straight.
Still kind of surprises me you guys got her to agree to come.
I think we've been over this.
I know. I'm just still stating the
Yeah,
fact.
Kyra shrugs.
Honestly, it didn't even take all that much. She practically leapt at the opportunity to help.
Probably because it got her out of that jail cell.
I mean, that's probably part of it, but... Well,
She shrugs again.
I will point out that while we were flying around before we linked back up with you guys, she did point out that it was kind of one of DV Corp's big things to try and combat the Amber with advanced technology, so this is kind of what she's been working toward her entire career.
Fair enough.
Just less inhumane experimentation.
What?
Yeah,
What?
she's a snide and bitter old woman, but when you spend enough time around her, she's not abjectly terrible.
What, how old is the bot?
It was like in her 30s or so.
That's not really old.
And
Our
Kyra
problem,
winks.
with,
I know.
our problem with Nabat stems from everything we saw at Devia Corp and the slaughter at Dali. She contributed to.
So let's get a flying.
All right.
The
Okay. You get back aboard the Little Wing, and in no time at all, you're getting into the air. And you begin flying, for Vuna Numo. Let's see.
We begin belching and then going to.
Indeed. All right. And you spend the rest of the day flying in that direction. And it's largely an uneventful trip. It's a quiet flight. Relatively peaceful, all things considered. That night, though, Nee. That night, Nee, as you are asleep, you blink your eyes
Love me.
open, and a field of orange stars greets you.